Hi, and welcome to UCC Medfield, where we exist to love like Jesus. We are so excited about our first ever Brunch Church today. Maybe even more so me excited, because brunch is one of my favorite things in the world, and church has to be right up there, right around it, especially if it's both things together. So we're capping off our summer this weekend by actually doing a little bit of a continuation of how we've spent the summer already. We've spent the summer on the Mount. We've spent this summer studying Jesus' most famous sermon, the Sermon on the Mount. Except we really only got through the first few verses, the Beatitudes, this idea of what God sees as a blessed people. So today we're going to take one half step more into the next few verses of Jesus' Sermon on the Mount.
So if you keep right on reading, if you're in Matthew chapter 5, and you keep right on reading through those Beatitudes, you go past, blessed are the poor in spirit, past, blessed are the meek, past the peacemakers, and then all the way past, blessed are the persecuted, where we capped it off last week, you find that Jesus shifts gears, and he starts talking about food, which is perfect for a table like this and a Sunday like today. He starts talking about food. Here's what he says, verse 13. You are the salt of the earth. But if salt loses its saltiness, how will it become salty again? Fascinating question, right? And then it gets a little bit harsh. It's good for nothing except to be thrown away and trampled under people's feet. Don't forget, Jesus says you are the salt of the earth. He's talking about people. People, he says, are the salt of the earth. But if those people lose their saltiness, what are they good for except to be thrown away and trampled under people's feet? In fact, Luke, in his gospel, he adds a tiny, tiny bit of flavor to this whole salt thing. He says, if salt loses its flavor, it has no value, neither for the soil nor even for the manure pile, which is pretty heavy stuff. So, I mean, if you're visiting with us today, welcome to church. But here's the message, right? Here's the message. If you lose your saltiness, then you lose everything that you're worth. You lose your value, at least in whatever Jesus is doing. He says, you're good for being trampled underfoot. You're not good to even be on the soil, right? You ruin the soil that crops are intended to grow from. You actually damage it if you're salt that's no good. In fact, he even says, you're not even good enough for the manure pile, right? Like if you go stand on it, he said, like, you're ruining my poop, is the message there. So we got, like, what is that about? What is it about when Jesus says, you are the salt of the earth, and yet if you lose your saltiness, you're not even good enough to rest on the manure pile, right? That's the question that we start with today. And so here's where the way that I want us to navigate this whole saltiness thing, right? I actually brought salt. And I did that because it's Brunch Church, so we've got a table. It's good to have salt. By the way, I grew up eating a ton of salt, like way too much salt. And I've got a little bowl here with apple wedges. And here's one of the points where we're actually going to ask you to interact with us in this whole thing, right? So if you've gathered around your table, if you've got your friends, neighbors, family, here's what I want you to do. Take a few minutes and gather some things. First of all, grab some salt. I'm pretty confident you've got some salt. And then I'm hoping you've got a few other things. Grab a little bit of sugar. That's what's in this little bowl here. Okay, grab some sugar. And then I grabbed apple, right? We're gonna eat a little bit of apple here. It doesn't have to be apple. If you've got apple, it might be the easiest one, but I think most kinds of fruit will do, especially fruit that you would like normally put a little salt on. That's probably going to work best. And if you have none of that, grab something else. Maybe if you prepped eggs for this brunch, you can put a little salt on eggs. If you've got, I don't know what else salt would go on kind of naturally.
Melon is great with salt on it. So I know that's already a fruit, but if it's melon season, so go grab some melon, or peaches. Those are in season.
Excellent. So take a few minutes or seconds, grab those things, hit pause on this video, and then come right back, and we're gonna do a taste test together. You've got your supplies? All right, let's have a little brunch together and see if we can figure out what Jesus is talking about when he talks about salt. So, like I said, here's what I've got. A little bit of some apple wedges here. And so we're gonna taste these. And first, what we're gonna do is simply taste them with sugar, right? Sugar is, we put sugar on apples. Actually, when I make breakfast for my kids, that's a pretty common one for me because I'm all about health. And I actually call them like, I call them like snowy mountains or something like that. I don't know if that's common, but here, I'm gonna let Kayla, you pick a wedge, add sugar, and then taste it.
Like how much sugar?
As much sugar as you like.
I like sugar. All right. Ready? This is fantastic.
It tastes pretty good? Mm-hmm. All right, tell me. I think you didn't put sugar on this other half of the apple, right?
Right.
So taste that one and then tell us how they taste different. The sugar side versus the non-sugar side.
It's actually a pretty sweet apple, but the sugar side definitely, it made it more like candy.
All right, so the sugar definitely made the apple taste sweeter.
Oh yeah.
Definitely made it taste. Sure. It changed that flavor as you were eating. All right, let's do the same thing. You don't have to use the same wedge. Let's do the same thing with some salt.
I don't have to use the same wedge?
You don't have to. No, we've got plenty. You want to use the same wedge.
Okay. Well, that was a lot of salt. Okay. So I've never put salt on apples before.
You haven't?
No.
So how'd you like it?
It's actually it's weirdly good.
Yeah? I'm gonna do one too. I've always eaten apple wedges with salt on them. I was growing up, we really, really liked that. So I'm gonna have the side of the apple that's unsalted first.
I mean, it's a good apple. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It is crispy, not too juicy. It's everything you would want an apple to be. So now I'm gonna have the salty side. Okay, I've got my thoughts on it, but I wanted to ask you, when you ate the salty apple,
Yeah.
you had a non-salty side and a salty side. Mm-hmm. What did the salt do to the apple?
Well, so it's kind of weird. I expected it to be like somewhere between an apple and a potato chip. And it really wasn't. It almost made the apple more appley. Like it didn't, yeah. You could taste that. It made it more juicy, I think. I don't know. I was very surprised.
That's so interesting because I think that's where the heart of the text really might be. If you put sugar on an apple, if you put sugar on food, it's going to sweeten it. Sugar is going to alter the flavor. It changes the flavor of what's there. Same thing would happen if you put pepper on it. I'm not going to do it because that'd be gross on an apple. However, pepper and sugar both are intended to alter the flavor, to change it from what it is into something either more sweet or more savory. Salt is not supposed to do that. Salt is intended simply to enhance the flavor of the thing that's already there. So when Kayla tasted it, it actually brought out the appleness of the apple. It didn't make it taste like candy.
Right.
When Jesus tells us, you are the salt of the earth, he really, really needs us to tap into what he is doing in our midst, what he is doing around us. And our role is not to make it sweeter. It's not to make it more savory. It's actually not to change the flavor in any way. The salt of the earth, the people who follow Christ, the church, UCC Medfield, is not intended to go alter what God is doing in our midst, but we are called to enhance what he's doing by responding to the way the Spirit of God is moving, by seeing where God is working in your life and in the life of the people around you, by seeing what God is already doing in your home, in your neighborhood, in your office, even in your town, and in our church, and contributing to the activity, supporting the activity, being the hands and feet of the activity, encouraging people around you with words that affirm and empower them to continue to pursue what God is doing. Whatever it takes to pull out the flavor of God's work in the community and the home and the table that you sit around with whoever you sit with, God is working already. We are the salt of the earth. We're not supposed to change God's work, but we are supposed to enhance what God is doing in our midst.
You know, that's interesting because when you think about salt, it also makes you want more, right? Like salty snacks are the ones you can't stop eating or you need a drink afterwards. So it's enhancement for sure, but it also makes you want more. And I think that fits as well. If we're the salt of the earth, our job is to enhance what God is already doing, but it's also to make people want more of that kingdom, that whole kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. So I love that. Salt. We can be the salt of the earth. Awesome. Well, he doesn't stop there. The writer goes on. In verse 14, it says this: "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." So here, Jesus is giving us another picture, another idea of who we are. He says, "You are the light of the world." Now, the interesting part is he actually said that about himself once as well. He said, "I'm the light of the world." And now Jesus is looking at his followers and saying, not only am I the light of the world, you are the light of the world. And a town on a hill, a city on a hill can't be hidden. You know, when I picture those pieces of art, especially by like Thomas Kincaid, the artist of light, where you have that little tiny thing out in a fairly dark picture. When you see light, it changes everything. And this picture of us being the light of the world, being a city on a hill that can't be hidden, or when you're flying in a plane and you go over the square states in the middle of the country, the flyover states, you always know when you're getting to a capital or one of the big cities because it actually lights up everything underneath, even from super far up. So this picture of being the light, this is a new one for us. Not only are we supposed to enhance what God's already doing, but we actually get to light up the world. How are we going to light up? The other interesting thing is light is absolutely needed. We can't go without light. Nobody comes into a room and says, "Turn the dark on." They say, "Turn the light on." So our job as followers of Christ, our job as UCC Medfield is to light up and be little lights that walk around and show what it is that God is doing, show that love wherever we go. Now, it's interesting to me because so often we talk about doing good things and doing them in secret, like being undercover agents of mercy or any of that stuff. And we're not supposed to show off. But here, Jesus says, in the same way, verse 16, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." It's almost like he takes a sharp turn and says, no, actually, in this we actually want you to be out in front of people. So what does that mean? What does it mean that we would let our light shine before others? What are some examples that we can be light bearers and salty people? How can we be light in the world? How can we light it up?
I think that's a great question to pause on and allow our families to, as you munch on your salty apples, salty fruit, whatever you picked up, try to answer that same question, right? What does it mean? Everything Kayla just said, what does it mean to be light? What does it mean to shine in a way that people see your Father in heaven through what they see you doing in our world?
All right, how'd you do? What was your answer? How are you gonna be salt and light? How are you gonna light it up this week? Arturo, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, we should have scripted this, shouldn't we? So as we paused and we started thinking through, as I was thinking through this, there's one thing that struck me about both, the light and the salt, and it's that as crucial as Jesus says they are, necessary as Jesus says they are, neither one actually works without a context, right? Like the saltiness, it's clear Jesus doesn't want us changing the flavor of what he's already doing. He wants us to retain the saltiness, right? He says, salt that has lost its saltiness is not good for anything anymore. But can you imagine salt just on its own? Like, take the pure salt that hasn't lost any saltiness and just gobble up a spoonful of that. That's pretty awful, right? It's the same thing with us. Like if we are just concentrated saltiness and we're not actually enhancing the flavor of what God's doing around us, we just become a spoonful of nasty, right?
Yeah.
Like the same is with light. You can be as bright and shiny, but if you're not illuminating the context around you, the darkness around you, then you're just a bright thing out there that's not good for anything. So I think when it comes to me, my first step is really seeing what is happening in my kids' lives, what is happening in my spouse's life, what is happening in my church life, the spaces where I work and where I play and where I interact with my neighbors, and being really, really intentional to see where is God already working in these spaces? Where does the flavor need to be enhanced? Where does the darkness need to be penetrated? Because otherwise, I can be as disciple-y as I can. I can be super salty, super bright, and it doesn't actually change anything, right? I'm not living into the way that Jesus was a salt and the way that Jesus was a light. I'm not loving like him at all.
Yeah.
So I think that's where I need to start.
That's good. That's really good. And it gives me something to think about for sure. The first thing that came to mind for me when it was salt and light is actually something that might be a little obvious to us right now because of what's happening next weekend for us here at church with homecoming. But I realized I haven't gone out yet. I haven't gone out and invited my neighbors yet. I haven't invited them to be a part of community and to enjoy the fun that we're going to have next week. So I've got work to do this week. I think I've got some baked goods to bake so that I can go and have a really good invitation to my neighbors and my kids' friends as we invite them next week. And I hope that you are ready to do that too. We hope that you've started thinking about your friends and neighbors and coworkers, people that are on your kids' soccer teams, or maybe people you saw in the car line in the drop-off for the first time in a few months. Everyone is invited to come home for homecoming this next Sunday on September 11th at 10 a.m. We're so excited about what we have planned. We have lunch, free lunch for everybody. We're asking everybody to bring some dessert to share. So it's potluck dessert, catered lunch, the best of both worlds. And then we're gonna have a ton of fun together with activities and ways for you to see what's happening in this community. What is God doing in and through UCC Medfield, and how is he calling you to be a part of it? So I'm super excited, but I feel pretty convicted that I've got some lighting it up to do to invite some of the people that are important to me to come with us next week.
I will just keep being salty.
That feels about right, for sure. Now, one of those things we did want to talk about, one of the things that's also starting next weekend is a discipleship experience called Rooted. It's 11 weeks where you are in a small group and you get to kind of walk through a discipleship experience. You get to walk through some of these rhythms that we learn all throughout Scripture. Arturo, you did that this last year. What did you think about Rooted?
I found that it was a tailor-made context opportunity for me to be able to ask somebody, what is God doing in your life? For them to express it, share it, and that always pointed me to what God is doing in my life. It often starts that way, right? If somebody else can tell you, here's what he's doing in mine, then whoever you're talking to will begin to see God working in there. So that's what it did for me. among so many other things.
Yeah, that's good. I love that the community part of Rooted, the part where you look across the room and say, oh my gosh, me too. That's what I see. Or sometimes that is not how I see the world at all. And now I get to know more because of your perspective. So this is a perfect opportunity wherever you are in your walk with Jesus. If you haven't started and you're not even so sure about this whole Jesus church thing, Rooted is for you. If you've been in church a long time and you think you've got it all covered, Rooted is for you, and it's for all of us together. So we hope you sign up. You can go on our website, uccmedfield.org/events, and sign up for Rooted and get more information about homecoming, because that is coming so soon. We're so excited to see you guys next week.
Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us for Brunch Church. Now you get to finish brunch and hang out a little bit, and we'll see you in a week. We love you guys. Bye.